Lydia, welcome. Welcome, ladies. This is Lydia Fenet, my new guest. I'm so excited to meet her and have her on because she is a leading expert in one of my most favorite topics, and that's self-confidence. Thank you for joining us on the Revitalize Womanhood podcast, Lydia.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'm so impressed for those of you who are not able to see this live. Gina is literally holding her daughter on her lap and it looks like burping her while we're talking right now, which is such an amazing entry point for this podcast.
Yes, this is actually a good everybody, my listeners know me, so they know this is happening. They know what's going on and they know Gina, but it's actually, I was thinking about it today and I was like, that is exactly what you call claiming your confidence. I think
Yeah.
it's a perfect example of that is defining what I decide my life looks like and living in it fully and authentically. And I think that's just the definition for me of claiming my confidence. Now, I'm jumping too far ahead with that because my listeners, let's introduce you to them. Would you please go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. So my name is Lydia Fenet. I wear many hats, like probably every single person listening to this podcast. I'm a mom of three kids. We live in New York City, and I have worked pretty much my entire career in the auction world. So I started off at Christie's auction house. I was there for over 2 decades, and I left a couple of years ago to start my own agency, which represents best in class charity auctioneers around the world. And in addition to that, I'm a podcast host as well. And I've written a couple of books. The first is called The Most Powerful Woman in the Room is You. And the second one, which you've referenced earlier, Gina, is Claim Your Confidence.
Yes, I can't wait to get my hands on those. They are exactly the kind of books. So, my community, just so you have a little backstory and information, I have a community of women called the Revitalized Sisterhood. And the foundation is 90-day goal setting. And the niche is actually very unique, I believe. And it's mostly women who prioritize family. So, whatever that looks like, you could be a working mom, you could be a stay at home mom, whatever it is, but you are prioritizing your family in that dynamic. And for that, one of my favorite things, like I said, to talk about is self-confidence because it is so interesting how far in life we get and still don't feel like we have. I'm not going to say mastered it because I don't think that anybody ever masters it, but we get so far in our life, even not having it.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
and and I think that's such a tragedy. I think that's such a tragedy that for whatever reason, and we'll talk about that. But let's start first because I think it is so interesting that you're an auctioneer and you are one of the leading auctioneers. You are so successful in it. How did you even get started in that? Did you say, I talk really fast. I'm good at this. I'm going to be an auctioneer?
No, not even close. I didn't know anything about the auction world until I was in college. And I read an article in Vanity Fair magazine about Princess Diana's dresses being sold at a place in New York City called Christie's. And a lot of people actually remember that article, or they remember an article about a sale of her dresses. And it's still referenced today because it was such a moment in history. And, I just was absolutely enthralled with this world that I was reading about this world in New York City, where there were all of these people in black tie coming to bid on something that was eventually going to go back to a nonprofit. And that was kind of my entry point to Christie's. I applied for an internship. I called them pretty much every day for 2 weeks because, of course, when you apply for an internship at Christie's, it doesn't just happen, but I thought it would. And I called every day for 2 weeks and finally convinced the internship coordinator to let me have a shot at an internship that summer. And once I got my foot in the door, I pretty much never left, and that was where I really saw auctioneers up close and personal. And I can remember I worked in the events department, so we would accompany the auctioneers, especially the ones who were taking big galas at night in New York, the kind that the article in Vanity Fair had been talking about. But I just remember the first time I went with the events team, we were in charge of standing near the tables to make sure the auctioneer could see anyone who was bidding and yelling, "Bidding, sir," when they bid. And I just remember thinking, gosh, I really want to be on that stage. Like, I want to be the person on that stage. And so it happened about 4 years later. There was a moment where, up until that point, it was only senior officers who were trying out to be auctioneers. You had to be an officer in the company. And they were just older and they had families. They didn't want to be out at night and there was no compensation for it. It was a volunteer job on top of a job. And I tried out and I made it. And as I always say, I was like one of very few women and I was a lot younger than anyone else out there. But that meant also I had a lot more time. When you're
Yeah.
single and, being out at night's not a big thing because you're not leaving anyone to be there. You can be out on a stage every night. And that's pretty much what happened. I started taking them and then it was almost greedy. Anyone who would say, well, I don't really, I'd stick my hand up, like, I'll take it. I'll take it. And, honestly, Gina, I wasn't really that good at it when I started, which now as I get older, I realize is almost half the fun. It's not actually
Yeah.
fun into something you're already good at. It's fun to go in and actually have the ability to get better at something over time. At that time, I wanted was everything right now and all at once, and that's so the opposite of the way that I live. I'm like, "It'll come in time. Put in your time, it'll come." And I did. I put in my time over, now it's been like 23 years that I've been doing this. And, I got on stage last night and so many people came to me, they're like, I don't understand how you do it. Like, it's so fun. I want to do it. And there's so much of me that also in the same breath, when I say, oh, thank you so much, is also just like, you have no idea. You have
Yeah.
no idea what it took to get here. And I feel like I'm still learning. I'll still have a night on stage where I'm like, what could I have done better? And so that sort of never stop learning thing applies to me in auctioneering as much as it does in anything in life. So you say, one of the leading auctioneers, and I think, yeah, but I'm only going to get better. So the more time I put in, the better I'm going to get.
That is so cool. And actually, I really love that you highlighted it will get better in time, because
Yes.
I think the problem with our world today is that we're so convinced that everything has to happen immediately.
Yeah.
We're just instant gratification, this instant, because we're being conditioned that we get it. I mean, Amazon next day. I was up at my mom's house and I ordered her a yogurt maker. It came that day,
Yeah.
like 4 hours later. Are you kidding me? This is what we have access to now. And so, of course, but people think, "Oh, I'm gonna go to the gym and my six-pack will just show up tomorrow. I'm gonna, read this Claim Your Confidence book, and all of a sudden I'm gonna have confidence." And it's like, it comes over time, and people don't realize when they're seeing someone who has put in the time, the story that goes behind it.
Yeah.
And I am with you that I think it is so exciting when you're learning something new. And once you become an old dog in it, it does lose its magic. So
Yeah.
if you can find something that, like auctioneering, you can't know what's going to happen. You can't know who's going to be in there. You can't
Yeah.
predict
Exactly.
the items. You can't predict what is going to happen. So that would be keeping it so exciting. Every time you do it, it's like doing it again for the first time. I mean, not really, but really. And I
Yeah.
think that's so incredible for you.
I also think, and we were talking about how this podcast prioritizes women who prioritize their family. I always think when I'm talking to women, because my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and there are so many moms who choose to be home with their children, and there are also so many women who choose to be out there in the world, that this isn't just something that applies to work. And so
Right.
because I'm an auctioneer, I mean, I this morning was playing tennis, which is something that I just love to do. I grew up doing it. I didn't play it for 25 years and then I came back to it during COVID. And it's been really humbling. It's been one of those things that, again, there's so much work at being better. And I just think it can be applied to anything in life, physical, mental, like there's always more to be done. And if you apply that to everything you do and you get excited about it, as opposed to letting it stop you in your tracks, life gets really fun.
That is so true. So with your 2 books, and I'm gonna say these names again, The Most Powerful Woman in the Ring Is You. Incredible title. That is such a good title.
it's,
And
it's
Claim Your Confidence.
my,
What made you decide? Because you are, like you said, you wear so many hats. You are a mom of 3, correct? 3 kiddos.
yes.
And you've got this career that you are now volunteering for. You're not just working, you're volunteering for your time as well and doing all of these amazing events. What led you to think, I think I'll just also write some books while I'm doing all this?
I know. If you knew me well enough, you would know that this is a really interesting personality trait where I just heap things on. I also feel like, kind of going back to what we just talked about, not everything's going to work out. So you have to put a lot of balls in the air. It's kind of a numbers game. If you put 12 things up, like two will hit, right? But if
Yeah.
you put 2 things up, who knows? Writing a book had just been something that had always been in the back of my mind. I thought I was going to write, I was in New York in the aughts. I thought I was going to write, the next big Devil Wears Prada about the auction world. And that was going to be my sort of thing. So I actually wrote most of one of those books and then didn't do anything because I was still working at the company. So I couldn't then write a book about it. So I ended up talking to a bunch of people about this idea I'd had for writing a book for women. Because a lot of times when I get off stage, I would say like 9 times out of 10, there are a lot of people who want to say things afterwards. And one of the common themes was women coming up to me to tell me that they couldn't sell anything. They're like,
Mm.
oh, gosh, I really could use you at my store because I just can't sell. Oh, I could really use you for my nonprofit board. Oh, I could really use you at my startup. Like, I just don't know how to sell. I can't sell things when people reject me, they're reject or reject my product, they're rejecting me. And I've always found that if you love to write, you're going to write about something. You're going to find a way to sort of pen things. And so
Mhm.
I just sort of noticed this white space, and there are no books for women to sell. There are a lot of books about guys talking about how to sell as a man, but one thing I really realized on stage as an auctioneer in a job that's really meant for guys, it's
Mhm.
always been men up there. That was really what everyone always expected. I went in selling the way that I had been taught, which was kind of aggressive, like super strong, all of these things, when in fact, that's not my selling style.
Yeah.
I love to sell things, but I'm the person in a dressing room who's like making you buy things. And then people ask if I work on commission. I'm like, I don't work here. I'm just having fun. Buy
That
this.
top was just tragic. I couldn't let you get it.
I know. They're like, "What do you think?" I'm like, "I don't think it does anything for your body. I think you could do
Yeah,
much better. Like, let's go to the racks."
I love
Uh,
it.
I'm just a salesperson at the core. And so what I realized on stage was I could bring femininity into my selling style in a way that was different the way that I'd been trained, and it could be effective in its own way. And that those two things were not good or bad, they were just different. And by articulating that and kind of taking ownership of that, it made me feel powerful. And so I'd started always taking auctions in black suits because the guys had to wear black tie. So I felt in my early 20s to be taken seriously as a woman in a job that I wasn't really meant to be doing. I needed to act like the guys that I'd seen on stage and the guys I trained with. As I got more comfortable in my selling style and people started requesting me and I started getting bigger and bigger auction stages, I realized that what was really my style was bright dresses, like a tight
Yeah,
waist and a big skirt and like big earrings and big heels and all the things that now the fashion is as much a part of
like
who.
you're attending the gala.
Yeah, I'm a guest and I do. I sit at the table. I know most of the people after all of these years at a lot of these events. And so I feel as comfortable walking into that room because I feel like I'm dressed appropriately. I feel I get on that stage and, last night I was in a dress that weighed 100 pounds. It was like all sparkle and sequins. And I said to the crowd, listen, I wore something that you could look at even if you're not bidding. So you certainly don't want to, and it allows me to really live up to the sort of full potential of being on stage, which is why people bid.
That is incredible. Oh my gosh, you are setting up such a picture in my head. And it's so great that you used the Devil Wears Prada as an example because I was imagining that
Yeah.
as you were describing your first entrance into this world. And I'm like, this is the Devil Wears Prada to me. This is so incredible. But where did you discover that you truly had this gift of confidence? I don't know if you want to call it a gift, or when did you was it after you came into figuring out that you didn't have to be like these other roles, that you had your own basically voice, you had your own brand, or was it something that came earlier in life?
I mean, I think it was through these things. It was through the setbacks on stage. I just did a post on Instagram. I kind of like live on Instagram because people think it's fun to see behind the scenes of what's going on in
Yeah.
the auction world. And I did a post where I kind of took people through, like in 20 slides, my career. And I remember saying, like the first, I tried out to be an auctioneer and I made it. I was 24 and I went to my first auction in Kansas City and it was an absolute disaster. Like I hit the gavel down, the top of the gavel knocked off. It fell underneath the podium. By the time I from underneath the podium, everyone was talking. They never stopped talking. They didn't buy anything I was selling. It was a disaster. It
Oh
was,
no.
and it was amazing because I think back to that now. And in that room, I would have known what to do, but then I didn't. And so I didn't want to get on stage after that. It had gone so badly. I just wanted to run away. I did not want to ever have that happen again. And then a couple, yeah, exactly. Ava said it. Like, no, I do not want that. It's like, no, no, do not get on that stage. And so that was basically, the next time I got on stage, it was part of that learning process of gaining confidence. And what I talk about, so I love that Ava is 100% invested in this conversation.
Yeah, she is. She's my co-host. She is. She's got her little jabs and comments. I'm sorry.
You're just saying, but I do think that for me, what was important, and as I look back on all of those auctions that haven't gone well over the years, is that they pushed me to go back on that stage. And that
Yeah.
was where the confidence came from. It wasn't from writing the book and it selling well. It was from the 25 auctions that were horrible. I cried all the way home and never wanted to get on stage, and then going back and doing it. So to me, to answer a question you asked at the beginning, what do I think claiming confidence is? I
Okay.
think your confidence is trying things that you don't think you're going to be able to do, and either failing and being okay with it, or getting through it and realizing how strong you really are. And so those two things together are what are going to make you the most confident version of yourself. And for me, that was stage. It was just going back. Like, I tell a story about taking an auction with Seth Meyers at the American Natural History Museum. And I mean, it has this beautiful whale room, and it was kind of my first auction. And Tina Fey was hosting. I'd never taken an auction
Wow.
like this before. And the whole cast of SNL was there. And Lauren Michaels was seated like front and center. And I remember thinking, not that I've ever even had a desire to be on SNL, but I remember thinking, like, discovered tonight. And I got on that stage, and usually Seth, I've taken enough auctions with him that he kind of stays until I start the paddle raise. So I get to sell everything, and then he comes out and we do the paddle raise together. And what I didn't realize about that room is that the sound is absolutely horrendous when it comes to
Mhm.
auctions. You can't hear, no one can
Mhm.
really hear you because it's so close, and there are so many people that the sound is kind of swallowed up. And
Oh, no.
so I started, and by the second lot, I'd completely lost the crowd, including the whole cast of SNL. And I remember Seth came out in the third lot, and then just together we bombed. I mean, it was just like he was looking at me, I was looking at him. I was like, this is just so bad. And this was probably 15 years ago. And we got off stage, and Florence and the Machine were playing, and they got on stage. And I still, to this day, sometimes when I hear the song Dog Days Are Over, I still PTSD how
Yeah.
bad that was. And it was I mean, my husband was there. I knew so many people in that crowd. And was like, "Ooh,
No.
that was a tough one." And at that point, I was,
Ooh.
you know, 10 years into my career. I'd taken some really great auctions. And so it was just a reminder. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. There's always going to be a bad one every year. It is what it is. And you have to get through it and get back on stage.
That is like emotional resilience 101 right there. That is how you build emotional resilience. It's like the bad. It's the bad. People maybe think it's counterintuitive to think that self-confidence comes from all of these good things that are happening in your life, and so you just build this confidence, but I think it's completely, like you're saying, opposite. It's from the bad, and it's from realizing that you can do something with it. You can learn something from it.
Yeah. And being
Because so that leads me to this question. I actually we'll come back to this, but this question, what about fake self-confidence? Because I think that is probably the product of everything going good for you, everything going right, everything. I think that that happens. So let me try to find a question in here because I don't have it, but where do you help people, or what would your advice be to help people identify, is this true confidence, self-confidence, or are you masking your insecurities with false self-confidence?
I honestly don't really think it matters. I think
Yeah.
whatever is going to make you comfortable walking into that room, sometimes you do have to fake it.
Fake it to make it.
Places where I find myself, it's like my gut is sort of saying to me, like, run. And then
Ugh.
part of me is like, you need to be here and you need to face this because you'll be more confident on the other side of it. So I think sometimes the faking it is what allows us to get in the room in order to build that confidence. But I don't always think it's easy, and again, going back to like the very beginning of this conversation, whatever it is in your life, if you look at it as more of a long-term plan as opposed to a short-term fix, you're going to have a better outlook. Like, was this an uncomfortable day? Yes. If I go back, might it be a little bit better? I should try, right? As
Right.
opposed to, oh, I didn't like it, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm never going to try it again. Because if you always do that, then you're never giving yourself the ability to realize you can overcome most things. It may not look the way you think it may not look the way you think it's going to look, but I assure you at some point you'll find a through.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to talk about, is if with anything, it's not going to look, I guarantee it's not going to look the way you think it's going to look.
No.
So just be ready to pivot, because you may have a goal that you're setting to lose 20 pounds, whatever. And then the end of your time frame that you've allotted comes and you've lost 5. But where are you? Where'd you end up on the other side? You might not even care about those 20 pounds because you feel so strong and healthy and amazing. It's like, oh, the goal was 20 pounds, but now that I'm there, I feel amazing. I don't even care about the 20 pounds.
Yeah.
I think if you can just be open minded to the possibilities of anything can happen and anything will happen, and it's usually bad. It's usually something that's going to be uncomfortable. I'm not going to say bad. I'll say uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That's what we'll say. If you can just embrace that, like you in the well room, and just like, oh, well, here we go. This is a brave face. Let's
Yeah.
just get through this and white knuckle it through. I think you're right. I think those are the moments that even if you're faking it, it's like, well, you get to the other side of it and think, that really wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
Or, or that was horrifying and whatever, laugh it off, right?
It's often the anticipation of things. I mean, I would
It
even go
is.
as far as to say, like, I'm so scared of needles. And I always think to myself after I finally drag myself to get that flu shot or to get blood drawn or whatever it is that I need to do in order to keep my health and make sure that everything in my body is running the way it's supposed to be running. Like I always walk in there in a cold sweat trying to get away from the nurse. And then as she finishes, I can hear myself say, well, that wasn't so bad. She's like, it never is. And I think
Yeah.
that that's like so many things in life. We work ourselves up to think like, oh God, I could never have that conversation. I could never do this. I could never. You probably could do it and do it very easily. It would be like half as painful, if that, than
Yeah.
you would be.
I love the book, Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie.
Read it.
It's incredible because he puts things so obviously that
Mhm.
you don't even think about. But imagine, I'm starting with imagine. Your imagination can create how many hypotheticals, how many, like if you have a really good imagination, endless, right? Endless possibilities. And if you let yourself get swallowed up in that hole of hypotheticals that never even end up happening, right? So you're just allowing yourself to stay stuck.
Yeah.
You are. So with writing both of these incredible books, what is the main that when you're writing it, you're just like, man, I hope they get this.
I think with both of my books and really with any kind of content that I put out there, I think the most important lesson in life is to live the life you want to live
Yeah.
and not look around and get affirmation from everyone else and not think to yourself, like, what is this person thinking if I do this? Like, really stop looking around at what everybody else is doing, what everyone else is thinking, and think about what you want to do with your life because you get one life and that is it. And so if you are 95 years old and you're looking back over the course of your life and you're thinking to yourself, gosh, I lived 99% of my life to see what Jenny thought. That is
Right.
the saddest.
And all the while Jenny wasn't even thinking of you.
Right, exactly. And that's true because Jenny's probably a confident person and is living her best life. So do the things you want to do and surround yourself with people who lift you up. If I say to people all the time, not everyone is for everyone. You may find 20 people who are your people, and then you may find a lot of people who are not, and that's fine. You don't have to be everybody's cup of tea. You decide what your life looks like, and you live that to its full potential, and you will live a happy life. And you'll be Jenny. Like
Yeah.
everyone's looking at you,
Yeah.
what is Jenny doing? And you're just
Right.
not paying attention because you're busy trying all the things you want to try and being okay with failing at things and laughing off the things that would stop other people in their tracks. And that to me is what these books are about. It's just about saying to people like, these are some of the tools that you can use in your life. And here are stories of how I learned them because no one starts off at home base. We all start off learning these things. And so it's really, as I'm collecting these stories over the course of my life, these are things that I've learned and I'd like to thread through storytelling just because I'm Southern and that's what we do.
Yeah. I love it. And it's so true. Actually, I was listening to your first podcast last week or something and with the gal, and you guys talked about that. You talked about how confidence is created, a part of it is created in that one life so live kind of mentality. It's when you've lost someone or you have the opportunity, like, sorry, sis, you have the opportunity to have this kind of outlook on life when really people who haven't lost someone or haven't gone through a major, sickness or crisis or something, maybe they can sympathize and think, yeah, there's only one life. But people who have been through that, it is like, no, we got to do this. It's one life. So it allows you to kind of gives you permission to stop caring about what anybody else thinks.
Yeah.
It's almost that jumping off the diving board of why was I wasting my time caring about any of this stuff?
Yeah.
And I think so many of the tools for a successful life come together in those moments.
Mhm.
Like when you are able to not care what other people think, when you are brave enough to try something new and step out of your comfort zone. I think it creates this just beautiful aha moment
Mhm.
of why the heck haven't I been doing this all along? This was
Yep.
incredible. Even if it was bad, it was incredible because you're like, I lived through it. I'm fine. Like I made this out to be that I was going to just disintegrate from all the people judging me saying, you're so horrible at this. And I thought I would just be a poof pile of ashes. But look at me. I did
Yep.
it. And
Here
I'm
I
fine.
am.
And I'm still wearing a great dress and I look amazing. Let's go out and get ice cream.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good day, all in all.
Yeah. Oh, how do you handle moments of doubt and fear? And what advice can you give to other women that, like we said, on the other side of this, it's going to be something that you can't even imagine.
Yeah. I definitely always take the approach of moving forward through doubt and
Mhm.
fear. One thing that I've seen with so many people over the course of my life, especially, and you kind of talked about this with my podcast with Alexa Von Tobel. So Alexa's a friend of mine, and she lost her father when she was very young. And in the
Yeah.
conversation we were having on my podcast, we were talking about our car accident. So I was in a car accident with my entire family, with my three
Oh,
children and my husband. And so I had a real near miss in terms of like the last day of my life and then a new life that started about 3 years ago for me that brought a lot of clarity to that. And, I fractured my spine. It was like barely hanging on. I broke pretty much every rib in my body. My husband, when the accident first happened, I thought he was dead. I thought my children, like, I definitely thought one of them was dead. It was just the worst possible thing you can imagine. And yet, throughout the whole thing, the one thing that I thought the whole time was like, you just have to keep moving forward. Like, you cannot stop and you cannot let this take over your life. You are capable. You are going to be fine on the other side of this. You will recover. It will take time, but like you're the person who has to do the work and kind of giving myself those sort of pep talks day in and day out. Even, I was in the hospital bed for 4 days before I had a rod put into my back. So I have a titanium rod in my lower back now. And in those 4 days, I could not move. I just had to sort of lay in the bed and just not do anything. And I just remember thinking, like, when I get that rod in my spine, they said they want me to stand up the first day. Like, I am going to stand up the first day, and it is
yeah.
going to probably be horrible. And it was. But, it was just amazing the recovery in this process of just day after day, whatever I put into it, I got back from it. And that for me is fear and doubt. If you let it stop you, I could have laid in that bed for weeks. Everybody would have been like, you get a free pass to stay in that bed for a year. You never have to get
Yeah.
up. Like, there's so many things that my body was doing. And I was like, no, I'm going to get up. I'm going to go walk. I'm going to go walk further every day. I'm going to go walk to the bottom of the Brooklyn Bridge. And now I'm going to walk a tenth of the way up. Like, it was such baby steps day over day, but it's all about moving through it. And it's all about moving forward and not letting it stop you. Because when you stop, that's when it all ends. And then it gets over you and you never go back. You just go
Well,
backwards at that point. So just wherever you are, whatever you're going through in your life, just take steps forward. Like, take a walk. Action leads to action. Do the thing that scares you the most first thing out of the day, first thing in the morning. Just jump into it because I promise in life, the more you jump into things, the more things open for you and the easier it gets.
yeah. Don't you wish you could bottle that? I
Yeah.
mean, I wish I could bottle everything you just said into a serum and it could just be handed out. I mean, obviously that would be weird, but I just know so many in having this women's community. I know so many and have met so many women who just they can't get out of their own way.
Yeah.
They just can't. They can't see. I actually just did a post about that. I had this baby 6 weeks ago, C-section, and it was, I mean, I will say it was night and day from my third, which was a emergency C-section, traumatic delivery emergency C-section, and I got postpartum afterwards. So I can empathize. I
Yeah.
can. But there was a point, even in those moments, where I said to myself, this is a fork in the road. And if I don't go down this other path of get up, because I was so scared, I became so scared of um, how am I going to get this baby into his car seat and the stroller out of the trunk? And like, I can't even move. This surgery was just so, I didn't want to get up and walk. I was just like, I was an island on my bed with this baby, and it was like, no. And I thought to myself, I'm going to become one of those people that are scared of everything, that are scared of leaving the house. They're scared of, I says, if I don't just get up. And I did, I had my diaper on and my whatever I could. It was like the end of COVID. I had my mask on, and I have a picture of it, of me just going to Kohl's. Just it's the closest store. And I'm like, I'm doing it. I put him in his car seat. I got his stroller out and took a picture at Kohl's, and I'm in whatever I could put on that was somewhat cute, and my mask. And it was like that moment was the moment that was I'm not going to let my mind trap me here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I did the same post, actually very similar, just recently, and it was like, get out and walk, but it was night and day difference of this time. This time I'm just like, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying is I can empathize for those women, but there's no way to do the work for them. It's just being able to say over and over again, just the baby steps.
Yeah.
Take the baby steps.
The smallest steps,
Go
it's,
outside for 10 minutes.
yeah. Go outside
Then
for 4.
tomorrow,
Yeah.
tomorrow, go down the street.
Yeah.
I had a gal in my community that she was scared to drive. They had moved to a new place, and she was just so scared that she would get lost and not be able to find her way back. And I'm like, hey, we live in a world where your phone will tell you exactly where you are. And if you don't know where you are and you get so stressed out that you can't figure out where you are, call me and send me a pin, and I'll tell you where you are. And it was just like, we can figure this out.
Yeah. But I think to your point too, the other part of that is equally important. It's asking for help. I
Yes.
do think that a lot of people worry about the judgment of other people when in fact, people are ready, willing, and able to help you whenever you need help. So again, if you're one of those people who's listening and you think to yourself like, oh, they've been listening to these women talk and I'm the person on an island in my bed, like reach out to someone because you're not living your life alone and you're not living your life in an island. So make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people who on those low days or during those low moments will come to your house and take you outside for 4 minutes for a walk if that's what you
Yeah.
need to do. And
Someone
tell
that knows the area.
yeah,
Like, come and show me what's around the block and bring me back. Like, just and being brave enough to ask for that help. And that's something I've learned in the last 3 years is I'm gonna ask for help, and I'm gonna allow people to help me, because that's a gift. It's a gift for them. It's a gift for me. It's not a burden. But I think as women, we're so concerned that it's a burden. It's going to be a burden on someone else.
and I
But
think
what?
the other
Oh,
trick for
sorry. Go ahead.
one thing I've always felt like if you're the kind of person who does think it's a burden to ask someone for something, my career and my job is very cyclical. So I have times of the year where we travel like crazy, and then I have other times where it's really relaxed. So when it's really relaxed, I reach out to people proactively to ask if they need help with their kids. If there's a mom who lives around the corner from me, and so
Oh,
whenever
bless your heart.
I'm always like, do you want me to pick up the girls from this? Or can I take, our sons to this? And, I'm very proactive because I know there are times when I'm going to need that and I'm going to be asking for that. And so I do want to always make it feel like it's a one-way street. And so,
Yeah.
yes, people are always fine when you ask them for help, but also be willing to help because then you feel good about it too. You're like, listen, I'm going to be really busy during these 3 months. If there's any time, January and February, where you guys need me, just let me know. And that opens up the door for a lot more mutual help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it puts you in their shoes. It helps you feel like, because you're not feeling burdened by it. You're asking to help them. So
Yeah.
it helps you see that, oh, maybe they aren't thinking these horrible things about me behind my back, right?
Right.
With all of your amazing guests that you've had on your podcast,
Mhm.
what has been your most, I don't even know if you can narrow it down, but maybe your most surprising or your most, this was so cool that I get to do this every time you record.
Yeah, there have been so many of those moments. I mean, one of the things that struck me during one interview was there was a woman who I knew. We're friendly. We're not best friends or very
Mhm.
close friends, but we have a lot of mutual friends. And she came on my podcast and we were talking. And I asked her a question that someone had asked me on a podcast, which I thought was really interesting, which was if you could rewind your life to one moment and
Mhm.
what would happen in that moment? Like if you were not an auctioneer, what would have happened or something like that. And I
Sliding
asked
doors.
Sliding doors, exactly. And I asked her that question because in her, like in the research that I was doing for her, it said that she'd been in a really bad ski accident. And up until that
Wow.
point, that her life had all been about skiing. And I asked her that question because I was really trying to get the answer about the ski accident and how that had happened and changed the trajectory of her life. And she ended up telling me this story about how her father and her uncles had been in a plane crash that basically they all died and left her mother and all of her aunts. They lived in Alaska, and
Wow.
all of the women had had to re-find themselves because up until that point they'd been living very much about their lives had been really for their husbands in that area, and they'd all the husbands had gone caribou hunting or something like that. So it was
Right.
all about packing them and getting them ready, and it was just very much about what they did. And it was just one of those things that we were sitting there and I was like, wow, these podcasts are so amazing because you have this opportunity with someone for 40 minutes or an hour to really learn about them. And up until that point, I think I'd been very concerned about my notes and making sure that I had all the right questions. And I realized that actually, if you just let the podcast happen, you're going to find out so many amazing things about people that a lot of times have very little to do with anything else, especially on the topic of confidence.
Right.
For her, I thought it was a ski accident that she was able to overcome and move into a different direction and now has this amazing career. When in fact, the confidence came from losing her father and all of her uncles with whom she was very close and watching these women kind of rise from the ashes to recreate themselves in these new lives. And it explains so much about her now, but that
Yeah.
really for me was a really incredible moment. And I remember saying afterwards, like, I'm so sorry. She's like, oh no, we asked them to not put it in any of the papers because I didn't want to be known as the girl who'd like lost all these things.
Wow.
It was just so much strength and so many
Yeah.
strength from it.
That is so cool. So, okay, I'm gonna hold the mirror back up to you and ask you that question. When is the moment? Because from this talk, this conversation so far, I would say the accident with your family.
Yes. And I think I would agree without a doubt. That still to me would
Yes.
be the moment. And people sort of, you know, in a weird way, I wouldn't take it back. I mean, obviously, I would
Yeah.
take back the accident,
No,
but
I
I
get
think it'd be hard to go back to the life I had before because I have such clarity on life now in a way that I don't think I did before that. I think I was just living, I'd been in the same job forever. I was doing all these things. And then all of a sudden, it was like my life has, as you said earlier, a fork in the road. And I've
yeah.
taken the right as opposed to going straight. And I can kind of see what that life would have been, but I much prefer where it is now.
Do you know what's interesting about that? My husband had a guest on his podcast yesterday that I don't know the whole story. I just have heard he's this incredible, like great guy, but he's in a wheelchair. He's and from something. And he said to him, he asked him, he said, if you could walk again, would you? And he said no.
Yeah.
He actually said no. He said, and I thought that is incredible because I can't even fathom that.
Mm.
But if I think about that moment that was the catalyst in my life that sent me this way, I wouldn't change that either.
Yeah.
And it was devastating. And I wouldn't change it either because, like you said, it put us on this path and gave me the confidence and a mindset around letting go of what people think and all the things. It put me on that path. And because before that, that's why I wanted to ask you that question about fake confidence.
Mm.
Because before that, I truly do believe that I was living my life that way, like putting on a show.
Yeah.
I
Everyone else.
didn't want to be, and that's so sad to say for my mom because I love my mom dearly and she is an amazing. She's a stay-at-home mom, 8 kids, was raised on a farm, very humble background, and just the sweetest thing ever, but always puts everyone first. She just always like she could be dead on the floor, but as long as her family was okay and her husband was fed and she would be happy, right? One of those. And not to say I don't want to be her because there's so many parts of her that I admire and I do want to be, but the independent person in me and the just adventurer and I was just like, I don't want to be that way. So I think I did work very hard in a community. We're in Utah. So in a very culturally specific community, I did not want to be like that. And I fought against it. So I do think I put on a show, but I think it was that moment when life was like rock bottom, quote unquote, that I truly became this person that was, oh, this is authentically me. And this is who I'm going to be. And to hell with all the rest of you.
Yeah. And that's a really nice thing. It's a really
Yeah.
to be living in your truth. And I think about being a mom to three children. And I have a great relationship with my mom. And as I said earlier, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And I think that as a mom of children, like I know the things about myself that I kind of hope they don't emulate versus the things
Yeah.
that I really do. And that's part of this whole journey, right? Is this self-awareness that you gain over time. And I'm sure my mom has things that if she looks back, there will be things that she'll be like, I hope that the girls and my sons don't end up doing this, but
Yeah.
we all live our lives. And what my hope is that for my mom in her life, that she has lived the life that she wants to live, and that she doesn't look back and regret anything because I don't want to do that. And I want
Yeah.
that for her and I want that for my kids. And I want them to go through the messy imperfects because that's part of the learning process. And it's hard, especially as a mom, sometimes to step away and be like, I know a better way to do that. But I think that's
Yeah.
important for our kids, for us to give them that gift of being like, listen, you're going to go through it and there are going to be some ups and downs, but you're going to keep moving forward. In those moments, you're going to know that you have the ability to do that because you have the confidence to know and the confidence in yourself to believe that you can do that.
Which is so true. And I have the hardest time with that as a mom. I am very, because my kids are still young and 13, 10, 4, and newborn, right? And so I have a hard time in my own personality letting them do these things. I kind of have become more of a helicopter. But luckily I have my husband that says, don't do that. Don't make that. Don't put their clothes in the dryer before they get ready for school.
Right. Yes.
But my mom, oh, I see you mad. My mom, she was very much, hey, this is going to burn you. Just saying. And then it would. I have so many of those moments that I can say, oh man, I wish I would have listened to my mom. But I had to learn for myself, right?
You do.
So I wish I was more like her in that way. So she does. I'm telling you, she does have those things. So what if, okay, what, well, sometimes my husband hears her on the monitor and comes and gets her. What would you say? Because you do have kiddos, but I want to know, what would you say to, because confidence, I think the shaping of it, the falling of it, whatever, I think it does start to happen around, I don't know, age, gosh, it's so much sooner now, but we'll say 12. We'll just say 12. We'll say 12.
Yeah.
What would you say to 12-year-old Lydia about life right now?
I think it always, for me, will go back to stop worrying so much about what everyone thinks. Because even though I do feel like I had confidence at an early age, I was always really concerned with looking around to making sure that everybody was okay with what I was doing. Because at the core, you were in Utah, I grew up in Louisiana, and the Southern culture is you
They
are
are watching you.
they're definitely watching you and they're
Yeah.
watching what you're wearing and how you're speaking and what you're saying. And, there's a huge emphasis on the church there. So it's also about like how you dress. I mean, all the things that I was brought up believing. And my mom is British. So it's very similar, those two cultures. And all those things that I grew up believing, I think a lot of those played into me kind of muting my wants and needs for the first decade of my career, honestly, like always feeling really uncomfortable asking people for raises or money or anything like that, because that's kind of what I was taught. And so what I would say to my 12-year-old self is know everything you can about money, learn everything you can about money so that you can be in control of your finances from the day that you are aware and able to have them.
Smart.
Such an important part that women are not taught enough.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until my 20s that I really learned that lesson. And I also like really took ownership of my finances, which has turned out to be such a wonderful thing in my life because I don't have to ask those questions. I've already asked them and now I know. And it's not that hard. People think it's very difficult. It's actually not hard to learn about it. And that's the beauty of social media. Like if you don't understand anything about anything, get on social media. Someone will explain it to you in the easiest words fashionable. So I would say that to 12-year-old Lydia. But then the other part of me would just say like, be okay going through it. You're going to be scared of a lot of things. It's fine. Just dive in because you're going to learn a lot more lessons for things that don't go well. I think that pride piece is stops a lot of us from even trying. And I should have tried things a lot earlier than I did, but I was scared of what other people would think. And now I'm not. So life's gotten really fun lately.
I think that is so incredible. And that I love that you added in the money part because that is so true. That is something that we take for granted. And I bet your friend when she lost, or your guest, I should say your guest, when she lost all the men and all the women felt this, they were all probably going, oh crap, what do we do?
Yes. Like I can't
And
into my bank account. I don't know how to use an ATM.
Right.
There's no reason in this day and age that we shouldn't just know those things. And
Yeah.
again, I want to say this because I am not the person who grew up with parents who were financially savvy and were telling me about money all the time in the way that my husband's parents did.
Right.
Um, it's so important that we understand where every dollar we have is and
Yeah.
what these things mean. Like, what is a savings account? What is a 401k? These are not difficult concepts. So don't be scared. Ask the questions. If you don't know, ask again. Just keep asking until you really understand.
And you're not the only one asking. That's the thing is, I love that you said the pride thing. If you could just let go of the pride, it's my mom said to me, and this was a big thing she said to me in high school was because I did care about what everybody was wearing. I wanted to be the most like in style and whatever, you know. And she said, everybody is so worried. Think about how much you're obsessing about you and what you think and what you feel and how you look. And she said, that is how everybody feels. They don't have time to worry about you.
No.
They're not. They're worrying about themselves. And I was like, oh, and that stuck with me my whole life is even if someone maybe is, it's like a fleeting moment. It's a
Yeah.
fleeting moment.
I tell people I had a great moment in life that really illustrated that point. I ran into a woman who I went to high school with, and we've been talking for about 25, 30 minutes. And at the end, I said something. And then at the end of her conversation, she said, well, I mean, I guess it was just, because I ended up leaving halfway through senior year because I kind of got kicked out. So and I was like, I didn't even remember. Like, I literally was like, you did. And obviously it was something that had plagued her whole life.
Yeah.
It never, like in my mind, she'd graduated with us. Like I had no idea what she was talking about. I was like, wait, you didn't graduate? She's like, no, remember I got kicked out. I was like, I actually don't remember that at all. She's like, really?
And how sad that this is something that has been just a cloud over her.
Totally. Yes. So to your mother's point, it's a very good point.
Wow. I love it so much. I have really loved this conversation. I'm going to let you get out of here because, whether we like it or not, Even's done. She's done. But I have so enjoyed this conversation. I really loved getting to know you. Where's the best place for people to come check you out?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram all the time at Lydia Fenet, same as LinkedIn. I have my name across Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. So it's Lydia Fenet, or please pick up a copy of one of the books, The Most Powerful Woman Is You, or Claim Your Confidence. Or I do my podcast with Rockefeller Center in New York. It's called Claim Your Confidence. So any of those places, there's tons of content.
Powerhouse women, powerhouse guests. And I am so excited. We're definitely going to put the titles of these books in the show notes so everybody can make sure to get their copy.
Well, I would like to thank you and your co-host for our fabulous
Thank
conversation.
you. Thank you. It's been really fun. It's been really interesting because I'm trying to get everything as much done as possible. She's only 7 weeks old. We've already got her passport. We're trying to do everything we can to leave March 15th and be gone for 18 months traveling because that's what we do. We're a travel family. And so but this time I just don't want to be doing anything. I want to be so present. This is like one of the last times that we'll get to do this with our 13-year-old because when we left originally, he was 5.
Wow.
So he's been to over 70 countries and over 8 years of travel. And this is his last, because we really want to come home when he is learning to drive and starting to date. And we want him to have that.
Yeah.
But so I'm just trying to I'm like, okay, no babysitters today. We've got the baby on the podcast. Everybody, it's okay. This is what we're doing. This is mom life. This is revitalized womanhood. This is how we do. And so it's just been boom, 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 boom. But I am really, I will say thank you because podcasting to me and my husband, we talked about this yesterday, I'm just a curious person. I just love people. I love meeting people. I love seeing how other people live. And it allows me into your world. I never would have other than social media, but that's not you and I having a conversation. It allows me deep into your world. And I think that is such a gift. So thank you for sharing with us on Revitalized Womanhood. And we will hopefully maybe talk to you soon and have you back when book 3 comes out, right?
Love it. Yeah, absolutely. Always up for a podcast. Well, it was an absolute pleasure. And thank you for taking the time to ask the questions. And thank you to everyone who listened.